The spring market is here in Pittsburgh and things are heating up. I can pretty much predict what's going to happen every spring as inventory builds, buyer demand is through the roof, and we see bidding wars all over the place. But there are some things that just aren't adding up. I'm starting to see some cracks in the system, and if you are a buyer or a seller in the current market, you need to pay attention to understand how you can navigate this market the most effective way possible. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through what's happening right now in the Pittsburgh spring market. I'm going to share with you some of the data that I collect that helps track inventory, pricing, and especially bidding wars. And most importantly, I'm going to compare that data to what I'm seeing on the ground with all the clients that I'm serving throughout Allegheny County. Hi, my name is Mark McClinchie, and I've been in real estate since 2018 in the Pittsburgh area. My business specializes with out-of-state homebuyers moving to the Pittsburgh area that have little to no experience in the Pittsburgh area. I started a YouTube channel back in 2020 that provides information about the lifestyle in neighborhoods and communities and schools throughout the Pittsburgh region. I'm super excited about today's video because I'm sharing some of the data that I only share directly with my clients. And be sure to stick around to the end because that is where I'm going to share one of my most shocking pieces of information that I just discovered this past week that I really think is important, maybe showing some signs that the current spring market on one hand is not as aggressive as it is, but there is a surprising trend you need to know about. All right, the first data point that I'm going to share comes from the data that I've been gathering meticulously week by week, month by month for the past 6 or 7 years. I've been tracking data for Allegheny County for homes listed between $200,000 and $600,000. And I'm looking at month-to-month data of how many new listings came to market, and then I'm searching in the agent notes to see which of those homes, according to the agent, had a published bidding war. So the agent will write down that highest and best offers are due by Sunday at 6 o'clock. Those notes typically stay there all the time. Now, could an agent go back and change it and I miss it? Of course. It isn't the best way to do it, but I don't know of any other way to do it, but it is, I'm consistently counting the same way year over year over year. And so if anything, my numbers are conservative and the real numbers are a little bit higher, so I have an undercount. So here's the story. Here in 2026, we're seeing the same pattern that we see every spring. I'm sharing the current data just to kind of say broadly that Allegheny County every spring sees the highest proportion of bidding wars, usually every March and April. And it's playing out that same way this particular spring. So right now, as I record this video, we're in early May of 2026, and I've got data collected since the beginning of the year. And the numbers that I'm seeing this spring or since January 1st are similar to the numbers that we're seeing for the last 5 years. So when you look at the data in 2022, we peaked around 29% of all listings had bidding wars. In 2023, that number dropped to 22%. And in 2024, it dropped to 17%. 2025, it was around 13 or 14%. And this year, again, that trend continues, we're dropping down. I'm only seeing bidding wars around 11 to 12% of listings between January 1st and the end of April. So bidding wars are happening this current spring, but they're not nearly as frequent as they've been in past years. However, I will share a data point that's going to talk about the intensity and the veracity of those bidding wars because I do think there is something that is a little bit different going on. So what we're seeing with this data is the typical seasonal surge. Most buyers actually come out in January and February, and I can attest to that from personal experience. They're ready January, they're ready February, they're ready to hit the ground running. There just aren't enough listings. And the sellers, sometimes they have their eye on maybe April, but maybe May, maybe June. Sellers don't come out early enough, which is why as inventory rises in February, March, April, and it hasn't reached its peak, we actually see a peak of bidding wars before the inventory has peaked. So that's the key point here, is just to know that if you're a seller, you might want to jump on that trend a little earlier, get involved in bringing your house to market a little earlier than being around a lot of competition. Whereas if you're a buyer, you're coming out early and you're competing against a bunch of other buyers right away for limited inventory in early spring. So one thing to keep in mind, whether you're a buyer or a seller, is that we do have two kinds of markets. There are homes that are moving very, very quickly, and then there are homes that are sitting for a long time. Our average days on market continues to increase. It just means that our market is kind of bifurcated, and we're getting that K-shaped market where average homes that are in average condition, those homes are sitting. Those homes are where you do have leverage as a buyer. But those homes that are move-in ready, those are the ones that have the highest demand. They have intense bidding wars, and it seems like it's a smaller number every year. So I think we're seeing super intense bidding wars right now, but it's probably because we have the fewest number of move-in ready homes, and that's where all the competition is going. And so the flip side of that, if you are a seller, definitely do not make the mistake of just saying, well, the market's kind of hot, I hear the bidding wars are up, and I'll just list my home and I'll do fine as a seller. You might not if you really need to pay attention to the condition of your home and present it in the best possible light. If you have a chance to do some upgrades, my one piece of advice that I always give sellers is please do a pre-listing inspection. Don't let the buyer do the inspections and then the buyer realize that there's issues with your home. All of that can be addressed by doing a pre-listing inspection. Highly recommend. All right, for this next section, I want to drill down and talk about bidding wars, specifically for the North Allegheny School District. So one of the things I'm tracking is what percentage of the sales happening each month were over the asking price. So we're seeing a trend here going back to 2022. There were 75% of the sales prices were above the asking price. And then in 2023, that dropped to 54%. And then in 2024, that dropped to 43%, 2025, 50%. And for the current year, it is 34%. So you can see that we've had a drop in the number of homes that are closing above the asking price. And so that's good news for buyers, that things are not as intense, and hopefully that'll continue to buyers and make things a little more balanced. So the other thing I'm tracking is how many of those sales were with cash. So when a buyer brings cash to the table, it has a lot of advantages for the seller because mainly there's not a mortgage contingency. You don't have to wait for that buyer to go through a underwriting process to get fully approved, because not every single buyer goes through there unscathed. Occasionally things get tripped up and the mortgage is not approved. The other thing that happens with a buyer using a mortgage is you have to get an appraisal. So if you're a seller and you've got two offers that are the same, one's with a mortgage buyer, one's with a cash buyer, you'll go with the cash buyer because all they have to do is show you proof of funds that they have the money and there's no mortgage approval and there's chances are they're waiving appraisal, and it's a much cleaner prospect. So here's some of the data that I'm seeing about the number of buyers using cash. In 2022, the percentage of homes that were bought between January 1st and the end of April was 17%. And then in 2023, it was 8%. 2024, it was 20%. 2025, the same thing, it was 20%. And now, just in 2026, we're seeing cash increase, seeing 30%. We're seeing more and more buyers, particularly in the North Allegheny area, that are eschewing the financing option and going straight with cash. And the data right here proves it. And then the next piece of data that I want to share with you that I find to be the most interesting, and unfortunately, I've got clients in this area as buyers, and that's what started making me think, wait, here's what I'm experiencing on the ground. I've got a buyer week after week making offers on homes in North Allegheny, and we are in these intense bidding wars, and these are beautiful homes. We're losing to buyers that are waiving inspections. So how do you compete with that? Well, I do have a trick, and you'll have to call me for that one because I'm not sharing it on this video. It's not something I want to put out publicly because I do think it's our secret weapon. And so any of my clients, obviously I'll be sharing that with you, but I'm not going to put it out into the public realm just yet. When a seller accepts an offer and they execute it in the West Penn multi-list, that property currently is listed as active on the market, it's for sale. And then if they accept an offer that has contingencies, then it goes from the letter A to the letter C, which is contingent. However, if you see a listing that goes from A to the letter U, U stands for under contract. Under contract means there are no contingencies on that agreement. So here's the data. In 2022, 9% of all the closed sales, first 3 or 4 months of the year, were cash with no contingencies. And in 2023, 0%, none of them. 2024, it was 2%. In 2025, it was 2%. And now, here we are in 2026, 13% of all homes sold in North Allegheny since January 1st have been done with cash and no inspections because it went from active to under contract. So that is is a disturbing trend if you're a buyer, because how are you supposed to compete with that? Well, I'll tell you what you do. The homes that are having these bidding wars, those are 10 out of 10. They're completely move-in ready. They're amazing. You know, these homes are generally gonna get at least 10% over asking. So on a $700,000 house, winning bids are sometimes closer to $800,000. So how do you compete with that? Don't go after those homes. Look at the home that was also listed for 700. It might need some work, but it's gonna be worth it. So look at homes where you can do full inspections, where you can do financing, where you can do an appraisal. So that's my advice. You know, stay away from those homes that are 10 out of 10. You know, go after the homes that are, 7 or 8 out of 10, and I think you'll be much happier. You won't have to win a bidding war. You'll have a lot of leverage, and you'll be super excited, and you'll tell me about it years down the road. Okay, so all of this talk about bidding wars probably has your head spinning, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse, because probably most of you watching this video, you're in the early stages of just looking at the Pittsburgh region in general. And the question on your mind is not, how do I win a house and win a bidding war? The question on your mind is, where am I going to live? What are the neighborhoods that are the right fit for me and my family? Well, I've got a great resource for you. If you go down to the description or the QR code on your screen right now, click on that, follow that link, and you will get to my free relocation guide. Here, you're going to get plenty of details of what it is like living in the Pittsburgh region. Information about our restaurants, activities, sports, culture, all the events that happen every year in the Pittsburgh region. Just had a great NFL draft. It was amazing. And more importantly, in that relocation guide, you're going to get a deep dive on 10 different communities that are the most popular with many of my clients. You're going to get real estate information. You're going to get school information. You're going to get information directly from people that live there and what they love about living in those areas. So download your relocation right now, and it will be a great resource as you do your research about moving to the Pittsburgh area. All right, so let's talk about some good news, some optimism, and we're going to take a close look at the real estate market in Mount Lebanon. And I've looked specifically at January 1st through the end of April data. And so I looked at it for this year, and I went back 5 years. So when it comes to inventory, in 2022, we saw 115 homes come to market in Mount Lebanon. The next year, in 2023, it was 94, went even lower. And then in 2024, it was 91, even lower. And then last year in 2025, we saw an increase to 114. And thank goodness in 2026, we're finally seeing the highest inventory we've had in the last 5 years. We had 127 homes that have been listed for sale in Mount Lebanon since January 1st. So that's the highest it's been in the last 5 years. So that is some good news for buyers. I do think my prediction that I made several months ago is coming true. And we're seeing early signs that inventory is on the rise. And I'll be curious to see where we land at the end of the calendar year. But if you're a buyer out there, know that you have more options than you've had in any of the last 5 years in Mount Lebanon. And then similar to North Allegheny, also going to talk about what percentage of that inventory, of those new listings, had documented bidding wars. In 2022, it was 26%. And then in 2023, it went up to 31%. But then in 2024, the percentage of bidding wars went down 16%. 2025, it went up just a little bit to 17%. And then the current year in 2026, we've seen 15% of all new listings had a documented bidding war. That's still a lot. 15% is no joke, and it's probably an undercount. It's probably by a lot. I bet it's probably double that in reality, particularly what I'm seeing on the ground in real time. So I think what this means for buyers is just don't get too focused on the bidding war situation. It's happening less frequently. I mean, we have to put it in context. We're having half as many bidding wars as there were 4 or 5 years ago. So that's good news. And if you're not interested in a bidding war, if you want to avoid a bidding war, 85% of the homes did not have bidding wars. And the information I'm sharing about Mount Lebanon and what it might mean for sellers, you want to make sure your home is prepped. You want to make sure it's stage ready and photo ready, and it's going to look super pretty, and you want to do any upgrades you can. You definitely want to do that pre-listing inspection. New piece of advice I'm going to share right now is you do not want to overprice your home. If anything, secret strategy here, underprice it just a little bit. Take advantage of all the buyers that are out there that desperately want to move to this community. And so underpricing your home, you really can't lose with that strategy. Make sure you get great advice from a listing agent like myself that really knows the market, that's in tons of homes, that can give you really good pricing advice to make sure that you maximize the best price possible. And the way you do that is to know the fair market value of your home and maybe slightly underprice it market. So that's going to command the most attention, and you'll come out with a great set of offers with limited, if not any contingencies, and you'll get to the closing table and you'll be super happy. So that's my advice for sellers in the Mount Lebanon area. So chances are you're watching this video sometime in 2026, and most of the information I'm sharing is as immediate as possible. So this was data that I'm sharing for the first 3 to 4 months of 2026, but I am seeing some good signs that as we move into May, June, July, August, we're gonna see more inventory. We're gonna see more sellers raising their hand to sell their property, and we're gonna see less competition from other buyers. We're definitely gonna see less bidding wars, and hopefully reach out to me, schedule an appointment. We're gonna talk about the neighborhoods that might be a good fit, and then we're actually gonna take a little bit of a quiz. I'm gonna have you do an exercise for me where I identify with data exactly the types of neighborhoods and the specific communities that might be the best fit for you. So get in touch with me, send me an email, send me a text, give me a call. I'd be glad to help you make the transition to the Pittsburgh area as seamless and as stress-free as possible. A lot of people get really nervous when they're relocating from out of state, but it doesn't have to be. This is my business. I handle clients from out of state. I love being able to anticipate what your needs are, and I'll give you a great experience. So please reach out, see if I can help you. And thank you for watching this video, and welcome to Pittsburgh.